why is this dude just flipping off of stuff, taking it so seriously?
If you were like smoking a joint or like chugging a beer or something in your parkour video, you would have been called out for it.
And let's be clear, parkour is weird.
I'm Jesse LaFleur, kids, and I'm here to teach you about the lazy vault.
What kind of loser tries to dive through small spaces?
Welcome back to the corner.
We're back in the corner. It's actually been almost 100 days since our last episode came out.
Sorry.
Actually, by the time the episode comes out, it will be over 100 days.
Sick.
So lots happened, I guess, since July. Mm-hmm. We're now in October, end of October.
Yeah, a lot has happened in the world of parkour, and sometimes I like just don't even want to do episodes though where we're reacting to it, because then it just feels like a news update. And it's one thing to kind of have conversations that stir around what's happening, but then I also don't want the pressure of like us trying to update people on things, or my favorite is the reviewing videos.
Yeah,
I don't want to do any of those.
Yeah, well, I actually don't see our show as an update, like a news update thing, because we're definitely not. I mean, we talk about things happening, but we aren't reporting the news. I guess, yeah. A lot of news these days, like general news, not parkour news, but general news is not really news either. So
that is true.
It's not just factual reporting. It's just it's bias and things.
Do you want to do a quick rundown of the last 100 days, or do you want to jump into something current?
Absolutely not. I don't know. I don't even remember what happened.
Yeah, go listen to the Store podcast.
We were meant to talk about SPL on, like, I think our last episode we were like, yeah, expect some episodes about SPL coming up, and then we just like got too busy, and then it happened, and then we were still busy, and we never even did like a wrap-up show. But I don't want to do that today. Yeah,
it's true. I don't want to.
If you haven't watched it, you could still go watch it. You just got to go to sportparkour.com.
That's the website.
I had to think about it for a second.
Yeah. All right. One thing that we kind of brought up with a topic to discuss for the show that we were looking at the other day is Z. I don't know, is Z like that his name, or is Z a short?
I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Zayed or something along those lines, but he goes by Z. FlipLikeZ.
So
originally from the Boston area.
Yeah.
Which is like, Boston has really become a massive hub of parkour, like freak athletes. And not just now, but even historically in American parkour world, like Alfred Scott, Sean Bautista, people who are pushing flip games or like inventing new things. Like,
you're reminding me of the episode that will never be heard with Dylan Bolin.
Oh,
because half of it was exploring that very topic about he always refers to it as like New England.
Yeah.
And how he has
not
felt
that old England. That's also a hub for parkour.
It's true. But he has felt for a long time that like some of the best athletes in the world, if not the best, were there, and they just weren't getting the same type of exposure as athletes from other places. I'm sure you could be from one of another place and have the same feeling, but he did make a strong case that we'll never hear.
Yeah, very flip heavy. I'm struggling to like think of athletes out of New England that were very strong traditional parkour athletes.
Yeah, that might be more of a recent development, because the podiums for SPL in the traditional events really spoke for themselves. Yeah, I don't know if that's been it. Like if we think back to, I think you're thinking back to like Alfred Scott and
Yeah. Well, but even nowadays, like Twin Parkour, they're from the New England area. There's just a bunch. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But back to Z.
Yeah,
so Z did in the new film Spot Tested. He did cast gainer full, which is a world's first. Has never been done before. But he put out a clip of this on Instagram of like his interaction with police, and then he gets it done, and then he has this reaction afterwards, and it's resulted in a bunch of like, I guess the clip went semi-viral, pretty viral, and it attracted a lot of negative comments from the non-parkour practitioner world, the quote-unquote muggles, if you will. And a lot of them were negative, just hateful. Still a ton of supportive comments, though. So I would actually say, like, based on my scroll through, is definitely way more positive comments than negative comments. But he highlighted in a separate post some of these negative comments that were very, very hater.
Hater indeed. Okay, so we have people responding to that post saying, you know, they don't understand. And so I guess the question is, like, do you understand why there's like hate to begin with for his original post?
I mean, I have some thoughts around it, I guess. So the original post, like after he does the cast gainer full, he says something to the effect of like, oh man, the cops are trying to like threaten to arrest me. Like I'm trying to change the game, you know, like, and he says it like super seriously. And he's not wrong in that he definitely has changed the game, but I think people just don't understand what the game is. And I think also people outside of parkour, and not all people outside, I would assume a lot of people who see it are like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, what kind of flip did that guy do? But I think people based on his reaction are hating towards it, because it's like, man, this guy's just jumping into sand. Like, why are you taking yourself so seriously? It's kind of lame, you know?
Yeah, I think I had mentioned too that your average person sometimes would see something like that and then see maybe someone else pop up onto the same railing at the pier and do like a layout backflip or gainer and maybe get actually like a bigger reaction, a lot because the movement is like more understandable.
Like, whoa, a big backflip.
And it's like, oh, because maybe like you start that standing on top, and it's like, well, this guy started like touching the rail with his hands. Like we do have to understand that that's what the majority of public perception is of difficulty in flips. And so like one of the solutions is you could post something like that. And again, if you're ending the post with this sort of like reaction celebration, there kind of needs to be context before. Like you're saying world's first. I'm in the culture and I had no idea that was a world's first. And I would kind of start to ask questions like, has it been done in a pit? Has it been done whatever? This is outside onto sand. It's not onto hard ground yet. But I can still, you know, based on how it also just like beautiful execution. He has some of the best like looking things of like I say what I would put under the umbrella of like Kong gainer type movements, but also like adding a full, like the way he does like the late, it's super nice looking the way he pulls the full out of it. And sometimes that move, like when I see Kong gainer full, sometimes the Kong starts kind of sideways and then it just looks like a mess. It looks like a very ugly flip in the air, but his was actually like very aesthetic. So anyway, that aside, people look at it as like they can't tell the difference between difficulty. And so that's kind of a problem. And one solution is you can go the route of, Bob Reese, and, you can have a voiceover that says, I wanted to do this move at the pier and it was the world's first time anyone ever doing it. And so I did it up really high and I was really scared, but then some cops came and then I talked to them. But then after that, I was able to pull it together and that made me really happy and I changed the game, and that's one way to roll it, but probably not Z's style.
Oh, well, it's definitely not Z style, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's just coming back to your example of like if somebody did like a layout backflip or whatever, people would react different. It's like, it's actually, I think people are hating on it not because of what he did, but because of his reaction afterward. It was 100% the like very serious tone of like, yes, I did it and I changed the game. I'm trying to change the game, And I think people are like, why is this dude just flipping off of stuff, taking it so seriously? And should he be taking it seriously? Yeah, I think he should be taking it seriously. But for the average person seeing it, it looks weird. It looks and let's be clear, parkour is weird. Like, we need to acknowledge that from the perspective of most people, parkour is weird. We're jumping walls. Like, most people are like, yo, that wall is not for jumping on or flipping off of. It's for like dictating the path you're supposed to walk, like, or it's like a structure that allows you to like walk out towards the water or whatever. In this case, it's a pier. It's funny that we take parkour so seriously because to most people it's weird. And if we look internally, if we think hard enough about it, it's just like a playful activity that we do for the most part.
Sometimes I think, I don't know. Sure. I think sometimes though, like I've probably experienced more what I wouldn't consider playful parkour practice than playful. And like I get what you're saying. Like we can, like the other day, like we're warming up playing stick, playing a game, but also like that game by nature is like very playful. It's not. I don't think I've ever played a serious game of stick. There's been some spooky moments where it's like, okay, we're playing, all right, we gotta, I have to match whatever is being done here, and that's actually like a scary jump for me or something. But in general, like it's a pretty playful game.
Well, it's like we have a range of experience in parkour. You have prepping yourself to do manpower gap, which is not a playful experience. Well, I've never done it, so I can't speak to that. But I'm assuming you're like, okay, I'm about to jump across this massive, drop.
Sirens on cue for that.
And it's there is an element of like high consequence here. If I mess this up, something horrible could happen. But so I have to be totally dialed in the zone, or I could think of so many scenarios where I personally have been in not jumping manpower gap, but doing parkour where it's like, okay, I have to really be dialed. I have to take it seriously because what I'm doing has an element of consequence and risk. But then there's like just session with your buddies, jumping curbs and like low consequence, like falling over or whatever, right? And just being in that mindset. But like regardless, even the really serious stuff, it's weird to most people to see us jumping walls thinking that what we're doing has any meaning. It does to us, but to them it doesn't have any meaning outside of like, why are you taking unnecessary risks?
Yeah, and I think that's a point that I can more kind of like stay on the same. Like again, the playful point I understand. I just don't think it's true for everybody. I would say again for myself, like probably more of like an 80-20, where it's like 80% of the parkour I've done for as long as I've been doing parkour, I've taken quite seriously, and then 20% is like goofing around. Or playing around. But the idea that even if I'm doing something serious, like a jump at height, that passersby or people that see it on Instagram are going to take it seriously is a mistake. Because, yeah, for the most part, they have no way of knowing that, and this gets brought up in parkour all the time, is that they have no way of knowing like all the work and all the serious like mindset that went into what's happening. They're just seeing some weirdo up on top of a building.
And let's be clear, parkour is a countercultural like activity. This isn't a mainstream thing. Like, it's been in the mainstream, but it's not something that most people get in any capacity. In fact, they probably don't even understand that you practice it.
Yeah.
Right? They probably see you jumping and they're like, whoa, that guy just jumped the wall randomly. And it's like, actually, this is my 5th time doing it because I'm repping and I'm trying to get the stick, you know?
Yeah. I think the other thing too is that most people have at some point in their childhood jumped something, you know, and that was probably the last time they did it as a child, like playing games, and maybe taking it serious as a child, but looking back on it like, oh, we were kids playing games. This is not to be taken seriously. And if they see an adult doing it, it's like, oh, this person hasn't grown up. This person is still playing make-believe. And why? Like, why even? Because they could get hurt. There seems to be, and the higher the thing, like if you're doing something like Z is doing, starting up on a high rail, going on a sand or whatever, there's high consequence if a mistake occurs, right? And so they see like this level of consequence and something that certainly doesn't need to be done. There's nothing to
unless you're trying to change the game.
Yeah,
then it needs to be done.
Yeah, but there's nothing to be said that like this is for money or this is, you know, a career. It just looks like some person doing something with high consequence who hasn't grown up. And that's currently what I guess we can say like Z is like the victim of, is that sort of like reaction to what he did.
Yeah, but it's funny because it's like I obviously think what Z has done is, one, incredible, but two, he's not wrong in his reaction. That's like, yeah, he's just changed the game. He's done something nobody else has done before, unlocked something new. We're going to have kids, you know, who are 10 now, who in 10 more years are going to be doing some like what he did, but also more, you know? So he's changed the game. But the commenters, the negative commenters, while realistically, they probably shouldn't be being assholes on the internet, but they're kind of not wrong either from their perspective. Like, why are you taking yourself so seriously? You're just flipping off of a pier, you know? But obviously they don't understand that there's much more to it than just flipping off the pier. It's actually a lot deeper than that. There's a culture involved in it. There's a progression of an entire community of people that are like now elevated. Literally, the game has changed. But yeah, I do think it's funny. Like it's a dose of reality, I think. Yeah. When you look at these comments, while it's easy to just ignore them and be like, oh, they don't understand it. They don't get it, you know? There's a truth to it. And the truth is ultimately like, why do we take ourselves so seriously when we're just jumping walls?
It's chosen an unpopular, tough to understand activity
that looks weird
to get, as you know, in Z's case, get as good as you can at, like exceed your own expectations, push the boundaries, push your limits, but in this niche sort of thing. But I actually don't think that we're ever going to really outgrow it, because I think probably skateboarding is similar. Like something like skateboarding, and they definitely have more fans. Like there's definitely more fans of skateboarding, and probably en masse, like more people that get it. But there's probably just as many people that if you had a similar reaction to landing a skate trick for the first time, it's like, why are you taking yourself so seriously? It's just, you're just rolling around on a piece of wood.
Well, yeah, it's so I happened to like watch this Instagram reel. I have no idea what the context was, but what it looked like was some sort of podcast with this woman reading what I think was like red flag behavior, you know, and it was like, oh, he's in his 30s and still skateboards.
Yeah.
And it's like people think, you know, view that as like, wow, you're in your 30s and you still skateboard, you know, that's so weird, right? But there was a guy on there who was defending it. He's like, no, like skateboarding has actually become a family activity. Like guys can go to a skate park with their children and skate with them together, like learn things together. Also staying active well into their 30s, when the majority of the people who are criticizing this are probably overweight and like not physically active in the same way that a skateboarder is, right? So there's an argument for and against, but it's like, yeah, skateboarding is another activity where it's like people just don't get. And if you're doing it while you're too old, while you're not like a kid or a teenager, it looks weird. I think it looks awesome when I see like guys with like gray hair do like skating, but I am from a culture that's similar. I'm also in my 30s doing an activity that's kind of weird and countercultural.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys like Tony Hawk still trying to push himself after everything he's been through and as old as he is. And you know, he has a documentary till the wheels fall off. Some people could watch that documentary and be like, this guy's crazy. This shouldn't be encouraged.
Yeah.
Like to that point. This is really stupid, and it's stupid that I'm watching something like this and that he gets paid money to do it.
Yeah.
This is crazy. There's so many other things you could be doing with your time, whatever. And then there's some people that watch it like, wow, this is really inspiring that he is stuck with this passion for this long.
Yeah. And turned into a career and has become successful as a result of it.
And it's like you really have to have your own sort of passion to get that. Something that you've like stuck with and pushed yourself hard on. And I think for people watching or coming across a video like Z's where you get this very passionate reaction at the end, but it's a very serious passion. It's not like what's his face, Shaquan Parsons or something, who just kind of is a jack dude and celebrates his tricks, everything, or Bob Reese, who like doesn't in his post style doesn't take himself very seriously, but people appreciate the reaction, like the happy reaction of achieving something. But then when you cross the line to like, I'm happy, but I'm also like tough. Yeah. Like there's this toughness to Z's reaction. I actually.
Well, part of it was he overcame the odds by like doing something that was incredibly difficult and has like never been done before, but also that he was experiencing pushback from law enforcement that were threatening arrest. Right? And so he does it anyway, and then he's like, yeah, I did it despite all of this, right? Yeah. So I understand his reaction in that context.
I had mentioned this the other day when we were kind of having a preamble about this, but I actually think there kind of has to be a very difficult switch that needs to be flipped in your head to be able to like survive public criticism when it comes to pushing yourself that hard in parkour. Because in order to be able to do things like that, so something that's like a world's first, a true world's first, that is a big deal within the sport, you need to have that toughness, because there are all kinds of consequences related to messing up and rational fears to get over. But then you have to be prepared for people just thinking you're a weirdo, because that's also another reality. And and so like I just see it as like a switch that needs to be flipped, which is very hard, because it's kind of like going into two personalities where I'm just like thinking of the scenario where like you're out training, you do something incredibly difficult that had high consequence, and you had to put yourself in this like tough persona to get it done. But then you're dealing maybe instantly on the street or on Instagram with someone that is reacting to you as just being like a weirdo. And so that requires like a flip of the switch of understanding where they're coming from, so that at least you can not have it like wreck your day. Which I think is like the case for Z's kind of being a good sport about it, but he's also kind of saying like, I don't understand people. And there's a few like parkour people commenting saying like, I don't get people, whatever. And so it does kind of like wreck people's day to get to see this type of reaction.
It's the thing with social media. I mean, like in some ways you have to have thick skin to like continue down that path. Like, I don't know if you definitely remember this, but when we posted that one viral like clip of STS where we were talking about flumping, there were so many mean comments. It was crazy how mean people are on the internet, and a lot of it not even related to what we were talking about, just like making fun of us, you know? And yeah, like it's like I had to keep telling myself like, these people don't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just the internet. But like, I would be lying if I said it didn't affect me like in my like mental state when I read the comments. It's just like, you know, like the heightened arousal of like feel like seeing, you know, and then you try to laugh it off. Or like Reddit, the Reddit Tom reacts to Reddit video that we made with about dive holes, because I posted something, and it's like I definitely like put it on myself, like, or I attracted that by like the way I posted something. That I found funnier in general, but yeah, people were like just mean on the internet, and they just like to do that, and so people are trolls, right? So I think you have to like think of it that way, is that people are just being trolls, and not to take their comments too seriously.
I want to ask you, this is, we don't have to get into detail here, but in high school, so if you think back to when you were in high school, and the people that knew you, so you have, you know, class of hundreds of people that you like graduated at the same time with, would it be fair to say that you had some people that thought Tom was cool and some people that thought Tom was a loser?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah.
So if you think of the people that didn't think well of you and they saw a clip of you today, like at your age, doing something that you're proud of, what do you think their reaction would be? Do you think they would be like impressed, or do you think they would be like, oh, of course, like that loser Tom does parkour?
You know, I've never thought about this. I'm struggling. So first of all, I'm struggling to think of like a specific person or group of people that thought I was a loser, but I'm sure it existed. Because I was weird in high school too, right? But I definitely had like a lot of like people who liked me, so it's like that's who I like remember from high school. I don't really remember anybody who might have thought I was a loser, but it's just they'd probably just judge me by the way I dressed or the way I held carry myself. But yeah, I would imagine people who didn't like me probably look at me today and be like, of course the loser does parkour, you know, he jumps walls. What kind of loser tries to dive through small spaces? You know, like that loser does, you know.
You literally spent the last couple decades so that you could squat down and then reach your tiny body through this like handrail, this arch structure.
It's like, that guy's probably rolling in piss, you know.
Mostly.
Yeah, mostly. Probably. Mostly. Yeah, I accept it.
Such a real thing in Vancouver. Like you could post a clip and then someone comment like, "Hey, I peed in that
I
corner."
peed in that corner. Yeah. No.
Too real. Okay, so that's doing parkour now. What it looks like. One thing I had reflected on recently after was, weirdly enough, this was actually after watching the Mr. McMahon documentary series on WWE and the growth of WWE. And there's a part in the series where they talk about how kind of wrestling started and it always had these weird characters and storylines, and then it went into the Attitude Era. And it's like this stark contrast between what was like acceptable, like to put on TV for viewers, and like what kind of became like how extreme the characters had to become and everything. And it just kind of had me thinking about the difference in parkour culture, particularly if I just look at like I don't know why I looked at my watch, but we're 2024, and say if like we just kind of rewound to like 2014 and just compared the two cultures, but specifically with jams. And I think the other thing that got me sort of drawing the parallels is how Join or Die just happened, and there were like some very WWE things happening at Join or Die that you would not see in 2014 at jams. And not only would you not see them, if anyone was behaving that sort of way, it would actually be like really frowned upon.
Oh yeah.
I'm just trying to think of, so I don't know, but maybe first, like if you can think of like examples, if we stay on more on the topic of like jams and events, of things that would occur at, let's say like jams, events, parkour parties or gatherings now that are very accepted and not only accepted, but part of the draw of the event that would not have been acceptable in 2014.
I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind is just general party culture at jams. Not that, like, okay, so even 2014, like, I feel like parties did happen. But there's definitely more of like an acceptance of like alcohol use nowadays than prior to than a decade or more ago.
Mm-hmm. That's a big one.
There was this weird like layer. I say weird, like alcohol's bad. So like I like, you know, people have fun, party. Like I drank a lot when I was, you know, freshly age. Probably not of age too. But there was this weird like layer of culture in parkour early on when I started practicing that was very anti-alcohol, like healthy lifestyle oriented. Like don't drink, don't smoke, just, you know, don't even drink Red Bull. Like energy drinks are bad. And so then when Red Bull actually came into parkour, there was this weird like faction of parkour that was against it. Some people were progressive. They were like, yeah, like Red Bull being in parkour is a good thing because it's bringing more money into the sport. It's this major sponsorship. But other people were like, no, we don't need that dirty money. You know, like we don't want it because it's Red Bull and they're just trying to get people on their energy drinks, right? So it was weird. And it's not surprising that people at that time in parkour culture were against alcohol too, right? Like, or just partying. So I'm not saying that parties didn't happen, but it was definitely way less. And some of the early jams I went to were very like, we didn't party. Like we just, you know, we would jam, sit around and chat, sleep on the floor, and then wake up and go jam. You know, it was like this thing. So yeah, that's the one thing that comes to mind.
Is alcohol, yeah. I want to shout out, I hope he's listening. He's no longer with us. Michael Stockdale, who's now in Scotland, but was in Vancouver and part of the parkour community here for a couple recent years. And I remember he came to an event, I think it was actually like one of our gym barbecues. And he like had a six-pack with him, I think, like tucked away. I was just like, is it okay? And then we got to talking, and he said like the one thing that really stood out to him, and I'll preface this that he was a distance runner. So he had spent a lot of time in that culture. And his observation was that we're not into drinking. We're just not into that. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like I can go for a beer. We as in
our parkour community.
Yeah. He's like, there's really not much of it. It's really not at all. And I was like, what do you mean? Like we can go for a beer anytime. But he made it sound like that in the like distance running culture that the after parties are like, there's like serious amounts of drinking.
Yeah.
Which I did not realizing, but it does kind of make sense. And and I was like, well, not at this event, but like there are other events where, some of that's happening. But I do see parkour definitely moving like progressively into that direction of like basically open alcohol and recreational drug usage are acceptable now in parkour. Like to the point where like you can also drink and smoke on video. That would have been crazy.
Yeah.
Even in 2014, so if you were like smoking a joint or like chugging a beer or something in your parkour video, you would have been called up for it. I think 2014 maybe we were starting to lighten up, but I still think that would have been strongly viewed against.
I don't remember when. I don't remember the year, but and we talked about this the other day. But Jesse LaFleur had a post of he was promoting a whiskey brand.
It's Cold Cock whiskey.
Was that it? Okay, yeah. So, so he was promoting a whiskey brand in a social media post of some sort. And there was so much backlash. Like, how could you? Like, this is the wrong thing. This is the bad image for our sport, blah, blah, blah. And I think it was probably around 2014. Like, that sounds like
that might be, like, almost spot on. Yeah. Because it was part of the tour. It was, Off the Edge tour? It was Off the Edge, the name of the... No, from here to there.
There was a documentary, and then Off the Edge tour was
So it was Off the Edge tour, and it was a sponsor.
Yeah, so crazy because nowadays probably nobody would care. Nobody would bat an eye. I mean, maybe some people would, but like
it would probably be like celebrated.
Yeah,
at this point. Yeah, and I remember even I think both of us had like a defensive stance. For like to in defense of Jesse for making that post, because it's like, yeah, he's getting a sponsor. We're moving into a direction where like we can get mainstream appeal or whatever. Why are people fighting it? And I remember like talking to people actually through DMs that were like gym members that hadn't been in parkour for very long, and were trying to tell me about how. I don't remember the specifics of the arguments, but we were trying to tell me how bad it was. And I was like really frustrated because I'm like, on one hand, I don't want to offend this person because they're a gym member and they're, have certain expectations around parkour, and my job is to like provide them a service. But at the same time, they're way wrong, and they're really talking on a turn here.
So I personally, like, I would probably have some reservations about having a whiskey sponsor personally. But it's also because it doesn't really align with me and my values. I don't really drink. So
I'm not a whiskey drinker.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't drink whiskey, but I'm not really into alcohol at all at this stage of my life. But it made sense for Jesse.
Yeah.
Jesse is like, I don't know what he's doing now, but I would imagine, definitely at that time, like he was probably drinking that whiskey, and he's like, cool, I get to also get paid by it. Yeah. So it was in alignment with who he was as a person. So it made sense to me. The one thing that I still like, have question is, I find questionable is he had a YouTube audience that was very much younger.
Yeah. That is a really good point.
Yeah, and so that to me is still, maybe it's not the best look for somebody who has this very like youth oriented presence on social media and YouTube in particular, and then promoting a whiskey drink.
It's like a typical pop star transformation where it's like Christina Aguilera starts her career and she's singing the soundtrack to Mulan.
Yeah.
And then now she's dirty.
Now she's getting dirty.
And is in like one of the most obscene music videos we've ever seen before. And like, think of the children.
Yeah.
It was almost like a very, not that extreme, but that was kind of the transformation that it seemed like he was going through the time where it's like, yep, I'm Jesse the Flair, kids, and I'm here to teach you about the lazy vault. And then now I'm Jesse the Flair, like the rock star going on tour and having after parties and drinking whiskey.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I don't know. Anyway, but bringing us back to this, like this changing culture, like then it was frowned upon, and nowadays, we haven't seen this really, but it's probably the vast majority of people probably wouldn't really care. And it's because we've gone through this shift in like party lifestyle for parkour.
Yeah.
Because so parkour, so we have to go back to like the original like concept around what the culture thought parkour was. And originally, like when I started parkour, my original practice, like this is about self-improvement. And so alcohol and partying is not really part of that ethos of like, I'm going to train myself so that I can get better, be physically more capable, and also have longevity in my life, right? But now parkour in 2024, parkour is an extreme sport. It's just like, and even if you remove the extreme part, it's just a sport. It's an activity that people get together to do, and there's a culture and a community around it. And your point about Michael Stockdale talking about the distance running community, like they go all hard on parties. It's like, yeah, it's not surprising. There's a term for recreational sports like hockey or soccer. It's called beer league. Why is it? People are doing sport together as adults, and then afterward they're going and grabbing a beer, right? It's like cool. It's like this whole, and maybe they're not like binge drinking like crazy, but they might be. And so so like generally we live in a culture of adults getting together to participate in activity as a community, and then going and then relaxing with, and alcohol is one way to do that.
I'm thinking about just like parties and parkour, and I think like Art of Motion, Red Bull Art of Motion, always seemed to have like a talked about after party. I can't remember when we started doing after parties for SPL and EPC, but like that's become like a very big part of the weekend, like an expected
first one. I'm pretty sure it was the first one. Because we did PKBC 6. So this is the event that. So we PKBC is a yearly.
That was the first
event.
Like big competition that we did that drew in not only people from like across the border, but possibly like from like greater distances, where we were like, I think we felt like we were doing something cool, and then we could continue to build it into its own thing.
Yeah. So we still have PKBC. It's just it's a jam, and we do different activities with it. But PKBC 6 was like the first like, well, PKBC 5 we did an outdoor competition, and then 6 was like in the gym, and we were like, oh, like this could be cool if we really like dove in on competition, and then NAPC was the following year.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure PKBC 6 we had like an after party.
I don't remember, but I'm gonna take you might be able to.
I'm pretty sure. Because also we had access to the roof.
But I don't think we had an after party on the roof.
We definitely did. It wasn't like a crazy like it wasn't like anything like SPL has been or whatever. But we had there was partying involved.
Yeah.
Not like wild partying, but there was some partying involved.
Yeah.
But then it started NAPC, and then more people came, and then we had Davises come and steal hard hats from construction sites and do crazy stuff, among other things.
I think the difference is that maybe in the 10 years ago, I was going to say early days, but let's just say 10 years ago, things like the Red Bull Art of Motion after party, things like athletes going on tour, and like trashing hotel rooms and partying, and like NAPC after parties. These weren't like the feature of the event. These were just like things that occurred, but what was sort of advertised and what was put out there and documented for the greater community was mostly like things that happened at the event. Sometimes now, particularly when I look at like JOD or OMFG, I see more videos of like the wild non-parkour things that are happening at the event, like the party things. And so that's like the striking contrast to me, is that like these are being put out there as like the main thing of the event. Like if this may have already been on video, but if Join or Die put out a jam recap, and like the video starts with Davis shotgunning a beer in front of like a crowd, would I be surprised? No, that seems like very on brand and very much something that would go into it. Whereas again, if we were advertising a jam event like 10 years ago, absolutely not.
Yeah.
That clip, well, first of all, you wouldn't be shotgunning a beer in front of an audience. And again, this is not something that I'm saying happened, although it probably did.
It could have.
But it's something that I think would be very on brand of like what's acceptable right now, and what actually like excites people to attend an event is these just sort of like party moments.
Debauchery.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting that that's kind of like where we're moving to, or like where we are right now, is just this like acceptance of like, yeah, we could all get together and train together, but we kind of already do that. So maybe we just get together and party, because that seems to be what people want.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's it doesn't necessarily like motivate me to attend events if that's kind of like if that's the big draw. If the big draw is like partying, well, like I never liked partying. Like I didn't party as a young adult, really. Like it just wasn't something I did. I'm a weirdo and I did parkour.
Yeah.
So full circle there. I am trying to think of like some of the other differences. I'll say like style of dress and what's acceptable there. I kind of joked about this a lot in the last like year or so. Just like we talk about belts, like wearing like belts with the jeans, and it's like it's funny because like my first parkour jam, I was wearing like regular jeans, probably with a belt.
Yeah. Like
just kind of like regular street clothes, and then as I got into it, it's like, oh, this is It was actually when I realized that parkour wasn't something that you just do. It was something you train for.
Yeah.
Therefore, I should be wearing clothing that's comfortable to train in. And now we're kind of going back to like...
You had the Under Armour?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I did too.
Under Armour and XXL sweatpants, man. That was the look.
Actually, the very first time I did parkour, I did parkour in jeans. And the reason I actually remember is because I shinned really bad, and I was bleeding, and I bled through my jeans, and I just have a vivid memory of that. So yeah, shin really bad. Bled all over my jeans. So cool though. So cool. Stuck with it. Stuck with it after that.
But now we're just kind of back to like, no, if you're doing parkour, even if you're, you know, like, because when I think of training sessions, sometimes I'm like, I'm going to get really sweaty.
Yeah.
I'm going to, you know, and I just need to be wearing something that I'm comfortable being that way.
I do find the jeans thing weird. Like, it's a aesthetic choice for sure.
Also, we're not saying stretchy jeans. We're saying like the restricted
denim.
denim.
That's the thing is like I need to be in clothes that are not restrictive. And this is maybe TMI, but like when I get home, like there is a very short period of time where I'm still wearing like my pants. I will rip my pants off. I'm like, I need some freedom. I need to be able to move comfortably. I'll throw some pajama pants on or something like that to be like comfortable. But yeah, like I need comfort, and so I need to wear clothing that is comfortable and allows me to move in. And so yeah, jeans super not my jam. Like these are kind of jean-like, but they're very stretchy and comfortable.
Yeah. This is actually like I think something I'd like to get some consensus on from viewers. So leave a comment for this. But I'm curious if you're listening to this and you're going out for a parkour session and you're thinking of how to dress yourself. Are there like different types of sessions you're going to have, and then choose sort of like different attire to wear? So for example, if I'm having a session and I'm like, I need to go out and actually put some work in and drill a bunch of like the same move because I'm trying to really get good at this particular move. So maybe you're going out and you're like, I'm trying to get good at off-axis tricks, and I'm going to the gym and I'm going to drill like 100 cork zero or whatever the kids are doing. Or maybe you're more traditional
whatever the
side.
kids are doing, cork zeros or cork sevens.
That's how I feel, okay? Or maybe you're more on the traditional side and you're like, I need to go do 100 comprees or whatever at the gym or your local spot where that's possible. Do you then dress in khakis and a belt and whatever is going to be like more of like a public streetwear acceptable, or do you show up in more like athletic wear? And then if say it's more athletic wear, then if you're going outside and the goal for the day is just to have a chill sesh or maybe try to get a clip or something, do you switch to the more like streetwear, or are you the same across the board? I would like to know kind of what the consensus is there, like what goes through people's minds when they are thinking of dressing for the sesh. One person that kind of comes to mind is actually like Silas, who is a Vancouver athlete. He's very quick to go like tarp off. And I think it's because whatever he tends to wear for a shirt is like uncomfortable to sweat in.
Interesting.
Maybe I'm wrong there, but I do notice like he'll usually wear some kind of khaki cargo short or jort variety, probably with a belt, and then whatever top. But he tends to go like top off as soon as he starts to sweat. Whereas like personally, I'll just be like, can I sweat in this shirt? All right, cool.
Can I say something? I've never heard that term.
What?
Tarp off.
What?
He's quick to go tarp off.
Well, I don't. Okay, maybe tarp off, but you've heard shirt referred to as a tarp.
No.
Like we're gonna take our tarps. No,
absolutely not.
No? Okay, all right.
I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. Leave a comment below if you know what this phrase. I assumed based on context. I was like, okay, he's talking about Silas taking his shirt
pretty
off.
Like, I don't know if that's like a gym bro-y term, or I can't remember where I first heard it, but I use it a fair bit.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not really a tarp off kind of guy. I actually prefer. See, I said I rip my pants off when I get home.
Yeah.
I prefer to be in public with my shirt on.
It's true.
Yeah. No, clothing is actually the big one because I've never and probably assume this just by looking at me, but I never really cared about the clothing that I wear. It's just purely needs to be functional.
Yeah, it's comfort.
And yeah, so it's always been about comfort. If it was purely comfort, I would probably wear sweatpants all the time. I think there's an element of like, okay, I'm like an adult. I should like wear pants that are comfortable but also look adultish. So there's maybe that kind of shift.
Well, they've designed there's so much clothing that like passes for both now because of materials. And then it's kind of funny that it's like we have stretchy cargos and stretchy jeans and stuff, but there seems to be a lot of like, I'll say like Gen Z type practitioners that are like, no, I just want like normal jeans and normal cargos or Dickies, and they'll be like, I can still do stuff in them. I can still do stuff. And I'm like, all right, let me see a squat.
A squat.
How did that feel? Could you feel your pants kind of riding up or pulling as you did that?
Let's cool it on the hate for the Gen Z, because like many of them are actually our friends.
I'm hating. It's kind of their style.
No, it's style. But what is funny about it is it's a throwback to the 90s. Like jorts are big, right?
Yeah.
And if they could, they would probably wear Jinkos. You remember?
Oh,
Jinko jeans.
Those are like the massive
the
bottom
comically
ones.
like large ones.
We'll probably come back.
I think I was talking to Silas one time about Jinko jeans, and he was like, "Yo, do you have some? Like, I'll take them off you."
Go sound sick.
But yeah, no, it's like I have one mode of operation when it's like I'm going to train. It's like I have 2 pairs of pants that I rotate between, and I wear a t-shirt and this sweater or a different sweater that I have that's probably Origins branded.
Efficient.
Well, you know what? It takes a lot of like decision making out of my day. I'm not trying to impress anybody by the way I dress. Except maybe I'm trying to display like, hey, I'm kind of an adult here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entering these conversations thinking that I have any style or should be talking about style in any sort of context, but like, yeah.
But so this is the shift, right? Early on, it was more about function than form, and now it seems to be more about form than function.
Although I think we all felt really freaking cool wearing baggy sweats and harem pants.
I never wore harem pants. I did.
I also have never worn harem pants because I felt like
that on record.
I felt like baggy sweats just had the same sort of look and feel, so I never went harem pants.
I wore baggy sweats, but for me it was always still about function and not form. I kind of liked the way it looked because it was like, man, this guy doesn't care about fashion. Because I'm like countercultural. Like that.
Skiing. When we're talking about like clothing changes, like in the. If we go like 10-year distance, skiing has kind of done the same thing where they went like baggy and then like more, I guess streamlined, we'll say, and then back to baggy again. And it's like, yeah, when you're wearing baggier attire, there's also a thing in like performative martial arts, like traditional karate, is like they have bigger uniforms because it actually like hides your joints. So it actually has like you have cleaner looking lines. And when I started wearing shorts, for example, to train in, I always just like, I looked at clips when I was wearing shorts and I was like, oh, what are my legs? And like someone's gonna notice and they're gonna comment on it or whatever. This just doesn't, like when you land up when you stick a Did
anybody comment on it?
No,
exactly.
But like when you stick a pre in like some XL to double XL sweats and they just kind of like flow in the air and then they hide the bend in your legs when you land, like it just looks so nice.
I got a comment when I was wearing shorts one time.
Yeah, did it make you never want to wear shorts again?
It did make me very self-conscious. It was Joey Adrian. Joey was like, man, Tom, you got really small calves.
Oh, tough one.
And
Sorry, this was
he probably
was
wouldn't
this in
remember
person?
that.
Was this in
this
person?
was in person.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like walking behind me, and he like commented on how small my calves were, and I was like, "Whoa."
Well,
And then I was like, I can't hide my calves with these shorts.
it's okay, because small calves are big jumps.
Yeah, not anymore. Not these days.
Yeah, just in general.
Yeah.
If you got big calves, you probably challenge me on that in the comments also. If you got monster calves, you probably don't have the biggest jumps on your scene. There's probably some like long lower-legged individual with really tiny high-cut calves that outjumps you. It's just how that works.
I don't have a long lower leg, unfortunately. I just have small calves.
Well, there's no benefit then.
Yeah, clearly. All right. Are there any other differences in we think? Like, because there's actually like obviously the movement itself that's changed, right?
Yeah, and it is. I don't know. I think more than ever, I have like pressure to like change the types of moves I do, which is weird because I never want to do like parkour for like someone else, but at the same time, I don't like the idea of getting stuck in a certain way of doing things and then the culture like moves on and then I'm like, well, I don't ever want to be someone who is like so like old school. Like it's inevitable that there's going to be an old school like type of movement or type of practice that like you still do, but I don't want to be like just so lost. I don't want to be so lost like looking at what people are doing now and like I don't understand this. I don't understand why it's cool. It's weird. I don't want to be that guy. So there is some like pressure to practice a bit differently because it really comes down to like to freestyle movement also, or you know. I don't like how I think we've stopped using the word techie, which I appreciate. It's still kind of there sometimes, but
That's something I've never thought about. Yeah, we really don't use that term anymore.
it does. Like, I mean, I think I hear it from the stores from time to time, but it's not being used in the way of like.
There was a style called techie.
Yeah, and that's what I didn't appreciate. But I think when a challenge has like a difficult, very precise foot placement, that's referred to as techie, and I'm okay with that for the most part because it required like a technique shift. You had to be very technique aware, and so like to execute the thing. Whereas it's not a style anymore, which I appreciate. Anyways, going back to just sort of the culture change, we are really going heavy on I guess like non-flip freestyle. Seems like very, very popular. So just adding spins or like, I'll say like spins and inversions to everything. So everything has some sort of like spin, inversion, or like change of direction that is thrown into like maybe taking something that was a flip and then turning it into a non-flip with spin, inversion, directional change, or like traditional move that has spin, inversion, or directional change. That's like super big in parkour right now. And I hardly do any of that. And I think more than ever, there's like a pressure to explore that a bit more. But it doesn't necessarily come from like, I'm interested in exploring that. It comes from like,
you don't want to be left behind.
Not that I want to be left behind. I want to, particularly as like, okay, so like owning a parkour gym, running parkour competitions. I don't want to be in charge of, I guess, something that is fostering community or industry and not understand where the community culture industry is headed.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's
not with your personal practice though.
Well, I think you have to personally practice it a little bit to understand to some extent, or at least consume it and try to like what for me anyways, I feel like if I practice it a bit, I understand. Like even though I don't really flip, I have practiced flips before.
Yeah.
And so I do yeah, I can say I comfortably understand like what someone's going through when they're trying to execute something. I can judge difficulty to an extent. I can't keep track of what's a world first or not, apparently, but I also have trouble counting rotations, I'll say.
Yeah, well, it's getting really difficult with the twisting now. Like Joey Adrian was arguing with me. He's like, "How are we gonna know when Rai does a quad?" And I was like, "What do you mean?"
He'll let you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if he doesn't put his fingers up, we don't know if he did a quad. And I was like, "No, I don't know. I feel like we could do it. You know, you just count them, right? Real fast."
Yeah.
And then he proved it to me. He was like, "Okay." He showed me a clip. He's like, "Is this a triple, a quad, or a quint?" And I was like, "Oh," like because he was off of a trampoline, and I was like, "Oh, that actually might have been a quint," and he was like, "It was a triple." I was like, "No!"
I like how you went.
I was so confident.
There was like a middle ground. There was like quad probably would have been like safer, and you just went like, "No, I'm gonna go full other direction."
I don't know if that was actually exactly how it went, but it was a funny scenario like that where I felt kind of confident in it, and I obviously didn't know what I was talking about. But Joey, even he, as somebody who can triple, I don't know if he's explored quads yet, but he has such a solid foundation flip, so good at like understanding rotation and twisting, and and even he's like, "How are we gonna know like real time unless we have like a video and we can slow it down?" So it is weird, but yeah, I had a similar experience because I was coaching way back in the day our flips program. It wasn't flips, it was the freestyle. I was like, okay, well, I have to learn how to do a lot of the flips. I learned castaway, I learned swing cast, and
because you're coaching
palm flip. Yeah, exactly, because I have to understand it deeply. But and that was my flips era. But I didn't do it necessarily because I did it because I had mild interest in it. But in general, I've never had like a strong interest in like developing my flip game. But even currently, like I don't know. I that's the thing is like I've never been one to want to follow trends in parkour. The exception was anything Dylan Baker did.
Because he was trendy at one point.
Because he was more than trendy. He was because I still consider myself very like traditional parkour oriented person, and he was like, how do I change, or even before Dylan, Taghead, he had this idea around like, well, parkour is the concept, it's not a set of moves, right? So I was very interested in that and following that thread. Same with Dylan, and Dylan is like, all right, I'm gonna learn how to do like descents. I'm gonna change the way we do something. Or like have really awesome foot placement and like rail running and things like that. To me, it was like, okay, like that's, I was very influenced by that. But since he's been gone, I can't breathe for sorry. No, since that has been, since him, I don't really find influence from people in parkour. Like impressed by, definitely. Inspired by their like the depth of their practice or like them getting good at something, definitely influenced by that. But the actual movements, I've never, I don't find much influence in my personal practice. I like seeing like new things come out of the sport. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And I don't know why that is. I feel like that's like such, people like and back in the day I used to watch videos to get inspiration, but I feel like a lot of people watch videos to get inspiration. The whole like parkourism board is all about looking to other people to like get inspiration from to do moves. But I don't know why personally I don't, or at least in the last, 5 to 10 years, I haven't really found much inspiration from other like people's movement to add to my personal practice.
Yeah. For me, I think just what's going on with parkour right now, and again, I'll say like with like freestyle parkour, with the just as many ways as you can spin, as many ways as you can do some sort of directional change, as many ways as you can contort. It's all good and it's all being explored. That's been really interesting for me to watch, because what I've tended to struggle with sometimes is the scenario. So I'll kind of paint a picture of the scenario of like, you work up to a challenge and say it's a single move, right? Kong Pre. Eventually you get Kong Pre. You overcome whatever the fear was of doing the Kong Pre, and it actually doesn't feel that hard. And you're at this point where like I could do repetitions of this. And so you start to look around the spot now, because you're like, I still enjoy this and I'm still maybe really happy with it. But I feel like I could add on to it. I feel like I could do more with it. And, back in the day, the easy go-tos would like, you pop something out of it, right? And there was a very short-lived period of time for me where I could like pop front out of some moves. And I had a horrible time working to that point because flips generally like petrify me. Like that's the best word I have to describe to it. It's like you go to do a move and you're petrified, you're frozen. You're like, move, body, and it won't. And so I spent a lot of time working up to that, was able to do it, and then I got petrified again. And I just haven't been motivated really to get back to it. What's really interesting about what's happening now, and I'm going to use an athlete as an example, is Camilla Stefaniou. I actually asked her when she was here, I was like, do you do flips anymore? She kind of just like looked kind of puzzled at me, like no. And we got into it a bit, and basically she stopped doing more traditional flips because of her injuries, because they were more impact. And so what she does now is a lot of what I'm struggling to kind of define in a single word, but a lot of this like contemporary, newer style of parkour, freestyle that has all kinds of different like contortions you can do.
Back in the day, that would be called flow. Flow style.
Yeah, anyway. And
another thing that's changed.
And I think she's exceptional at it, but I also think she's exceptional at it because she was quite good at flips. I don't think she was ever known for it, but like back when she like podiumed at NAPC, like she competed in style, and I remember she did like a really hard combo with devil drop or something in it.
Yeah. And
yeah, like she had some traditional flips. Or I guess traditional is not the right word, but for lack of a better word, she had some flips on lock, and I think she's been able to delve into like a lot of this other style because of that base. And originally it seems to have been inspired by just taking less impact. Going back to myself, and what I kind of find interesting, like to do is like that there seems to be like this big collection now of movements that you can do to tack on to something like a Kong Pre, that if all you have is, because sometimes like I'll look at a wall or even flat ground and it's like, how many moves can you do with this? And I'm like, whoo, I'm pretty limited. I'm pretty darn limited. And some people are absolutely not.
Yeah, you show that same like, spot to Kevin Franzen, and he can do all of the traditional moves, but then additionally like a bunch of things that you've never seen before.
Yeah, not limited. And so I think what's really interesting about parkour right now in terms of movement is there are way less limitations with what you can do. Because it's like also so accepted. Like people are very into, because some of the stuff I see, I'm like, that doesn't look hard, so it's still not interesting to me. Because if I'm gonna do what I'm talking about is like, again, you did the traditional move, you want to put an exclamation point on it. So I need to do like something swaggy at the end that has some style, right? And so again, back in the day, that was like you maybe pop front, pop whatever, do maybe a round off into a double full or whatever the case is, right? But now it's like there's a lot more continued interaction with the structures instead of just doing like a tricking pass, and it's really cool. What I'm having trouble doing though is finding like what moves I want to learn, because a lot of them just don't interest me because the difficulty level isn't high enough. You know, if it's something where it looks like, oh, I could already do that, then I don't want to do it, you know? If it's like, if it already feels like seen it, understand it, doesn't look super difficult, looks like something that, you know, someone could do that is maybe enjoyable and playful, but not like what I'm into. So for me, I'm
but sometimes like
trying to find moves that hit that difficulty, that I could, you know, use to expand my vocabulary at a spot.
Yeah, sometimes the difficulty comes in from the connection with the other moves, right? So like connection being like an element of difficulty, or the context of the spot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
a rail versus a wall, maybe more challenging to do it on.
And I think going like what you said, where you're not super motivated to like watch videos and try to like emulate or for lack of a better word, copy a movement. I think I do have some motivation there. It's just like there's so much now, and so it's like tough to dial in. And then there's also like every time I kind of get in that headspace, I'm like, but I also really want to get better at catbacks. And it's just like, this is like basic, you know, basic, but like, you know, just traditional move, where mainly it's just like improving my technique and mental with it so that I can have a bigger output or go to a more precise target. And that still ends up being like more interesting for me to spend time on than trying to learn something funky.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the style. Maybe that's the name.
So, funky style?
Maybe it's, well, that's, wasn't it, is it Franzen or McCreary that says like funky techniques?
It's McCreary.
Yeah.
Because that was the Instagram account for Gizmo, I believe.
Yeah. It is. They are funky techniques.
They are funky techniques.
Some of them I quite like.
I don't know. I think my inspiration comes from spots, like the environment. I think that's where I've been trying to think about like and you know, I'm sure I have like a residual kind of like thing like rubs off on me like when I see videos, and I'm not like I need to copy this move, but it's like I end up potentially copying some element of it. But I think largely my inspiration comes from the spots. And I think such a big part of parkour for me is the exploration of, well, maybe the exploration of the spot, like find the little nook of the thing that I could put my foot on to make, like, to open up the possibilities here, or just finding a new spot, or like exploring an old spot to find things that haven't been done. So that's always been like a big element of what I enjoy about parkour. So yeah, I think I'm just trying to figure out like what like inspires me in parkour, and I think that's largely what it is, the newness of it. Which is why like I get bored of like revisiting the same spots we've been to 1,000 times, because it's like, man, I've really explored all these spots. But then it's really exciting to me when I'm at one of those old spots, when I find the thing that I have never like really explored or saw before. That really excites me. Yeah. So yeah,
might be my favorite occurrence in parkour practice is like revisiting an old spot that you thought you had done all the things. So like either what's left is either like way too hard and you're like, ugh, I'm just probably never going to do that. And then everything else you've done, and you either like, that was hard, but I don't feel like repeating it, or that's too easy. And so you're just like kind of stuck. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I guess I'll just do the same like medium challenges that I did here last time. But when you find something new, you're like, I never noticed that
Yeah.
this was here. Yeah, maybe one of my favorite occurrences in parkour practice.
Yeah.
All right, I could go off on so many other tangents here, but since we're back to doing the show, maybe we'll save those for next episode.
I think that's a good idea.
And wrap up this one.
Well, so let's do a little comment thing. So comment what inspires you in parkour. Is it the people? Is it a specific person? Is it the community? Is it the spots? Is it your training partners? Like, what is it that inspires you to do parkour and to try new things?
Mm-hmm. I also still want to know what goes through people's minds when they're dressing for a training session. So let me know as well.
Great.
And until next time.